Pokémon Heroes, the absolute last Pokémon movie American audiences would see on the big screen, as well as the last movie before the show moved on to the advanced generation. So, like 3, I guess this one also marks the beginning of a new era. An era in which officially nobody cared. This time, our heroes find themselves in the city of Altamar, which basically equates to Pokemon Venice, which might explain why this guy looks like Mario. According to legend, the town is protected by 2 Pokemon called Latios and Latias, a legend that's enough to draw the attention of 2 more members of Team Rocket named Annie and Oakley. I get it! Who have come to Altamar with hopes of capturing these legendary Pokemon and acquiring the Soul Dew, a jewel said to be the power source for a great weapon hidden within the city. When Annie and Oakley threaten to destroy the whole town by activating the machine, it's obviously up to Ash and the Legendary of the Month to save the day. Out of all the Pokemon movies, this is by far my most requested, and it seems a lot of people consider Heroes to be one of the best in the series, which is an opinion I don't share, but I do think it's a big step up from Forever, incorporating a lot of what worked while improving on what didn't. First of all, this one has great atmosphere. It's the first Pokemon movie that takes place entirely in a city, and the film has a mystery element that matches that setting very well. Watching it, you start to realize just how many secrets can be hidden in a place surrounded by walls. 2 of those secrets being the featured legendaries, who are a huge improvement over the previous film's magical, squeaking elf sprite. My dislike for Celebi basically boils down to too much
"Ain't I just precious?"
and not enough "respect my power, mortals, for I am burdened with glorious purpose." Not that every legendary has to be mysterious or intimidating, the thing was just too sweet and carefree, and didn't really seem to have a sense of duty to the natural world. Latios and Latias do a much better job of maintaining that balance, with Latias being the younger, more playful of the 2, and Latios being more serious and protective. The fact that they come in a pair actually helps give them a lot more personality. They also have some cool powers that come into play, like their sight-sharing ability and Latias' power to take on human form, namely that of the one-shot expositing sidekick, Bianca. No, not that Bianca. Which is actually how Latias comes to meet Ash when he saves her from what's got to be the world's most awkward-looking assault. Seriously, this whole scene is just odd. But it does lead to some wacky shenanigans where Ash keeps following Bianca around thinking she's Latias.
Why'd you disappear like that before?
I don't know you.
Hey, wait!
Take no for an answer, kid. This doesn't need to get any weirder. Until it gets way weirder as a friendship begins to emerge between Ash and Latias, which works much better than it did in Forever, but the movie seems to imply that Latias has a crush on Ash. Look, I get it that he saved you from the lame villains, but that doesn't change the fact that interspecies relationships are gross. Speaking of Annie and Oakley, they're not great villains either, because their motivation, once again, essentially amounts to greed. But it's still an improvement over the Iron-Masked Marauder, whose motivation was evil. They're basically spies, relying more on gadgets and espionage, which gives the movie the feeling of a Bond film at times. It also explains why they use an espion! And like Latios and Latias, the fact that there are 2 of them gives them a bit more dimension. Once they gain control of the machine, Oakley starts to go mad with power, while Annie sits helplessly on the sidelines watching someone she considers a friend go insane. In the end, they're still petty and selfish, but that small bit of remorse you see saves them from being completely irredeemable, like with Lawrence III. Speaking of Lawrence III, he has a cameo in this. And this movie actually has a few parallels with 2000. Not only do we see the return of extreme boating action in Venice, mamma mia! But the legend aspect makes the setting feel more developed, because the town has its own traditions and history. Albeit a very confusing history, and this is where Heroes starts to fall apart for me. Long ago, in the past, a trainer terrorized the citizens of Altamar with the extinct Pokemon Aerodactyl and Kabutops. In order to save the people, the father of Latios and Latias sacrificed himself to create the Soul Dew, which in turn brought the water and drowned the evil trainer's Pokemon. Even though Kabutops is a water and rock type, which leads one to wonder how you could even drown it, but that's beside the point. At the end of it all, the people of Altamar built a great machine to protect the city should it ever be threatened again. It's a pretty cool legend with its own flavor. The problem I have with it is the movie says this all happened a few decades ago. Because that Mario-looking guy named Lorenzo says he knew the Latios who sacrificed himself. So then how did the evil trainer terrorize the town with Pokemon that went extinct centuries ago? The machine itself raises a few questions too. Besides, hey, isn't that thing from the entrance to Tomorrowland? This thing was built as a last resort and can only be powered by the Soul Dew, but in turn destroys the Soul Dew, which would cause the water to flood the whole place, so who thought this was a good idea? And why is it able to resurrect the very Pokemon whose reign of terror led to its construction? Not that I'm complaining about Aerodactyl and Kabutops being in this, because they're freaking awesome! But on top of that, we get almost nothing from the supporting cast. I won't say Team Rocket is inconsequential, because they do provide some decent comic relief.
We all scream for ice cream!
But the movie goes out of its way to separate Ash from the rest of the group. Brock and Misty do eventually use their own Pokemon, which goes a long way in terms of making them look useful, but that's it. And after the opening credits, I thought Misty was going to get her own subplot with this boat guy who's totally putting the moves on her, but it doesn't go anywhere. Though if they did explore it, it probably would have tread a lot of the same ground that 2000 did. Like, they'd be on a date, and Misty would be all, I come from a water Pokemon gym. But then she'd find out Ash is in trouble, and he'd be all, wow, you really care about him, don't you? And she'd be all, yeah, I guess I do. You know I have a boat, right? Meh, he's the chosen one. But it's Misty's last movie, give her something! I don't know, a lot of people list this one as their favorite, but for me, it's above average at best. But it's still entertaining and does enough to stand out. The plot never feels cluttered, it makes good use of its setting, and it's the first one that deals with death. Like, actually deals with death. Again, no spoilers, but I will tell you that someone dies in this movie. And it isn't cheapened by some cop-out resurrection, they stay dead. It's not enough for me to list Heroes as one of my favorites, but it's still a decent bookend to the original series. Which of course means we'll now be moving into 3rd gen territory with Jirachi the Wishmaker. Next time on Pokémon! So I got no idea what that last viewer question was, but you guys answered it, so let's see what you had to say. Interesting, some very different opinions here. Unfortunately, you were all horribly wrong. See, the correct answer was Munchlax. Come on, people, look at it. It's obvious. Anyway, Pokemon X and Y came out last week, so if you'd like a chance to see your comment up here, tell me who your favorite new starter is. Froakie, Fennekin, or Chespin. I personally went with Froakie. Leave your answer in the comments below and you just might see it featured on the next episode of Pokemonth. In the meantime, I don't know, maybe subscribe, eat a quesadilla, they're tasty.